Hi friends, I'm Diana and I'm a product manager based in Silicon Valley. And I bet you're someone who's looking to become a product manager. Today, I'm going to go through 5 ways to do product management work before officially being crowned a product manager or receiving it by title. I'm a big believer that you shouldn't wait for permission to do the work. And the surest way to get a title is by doing it. And that's how I got into product management. So let's dive in. When I think about product management, I break it down into strategy and execution. And with the 80-20 rule, in the beginning of your career, you're going to be focusing 20% on strategy and 80% on execution. So my tip number 1, build strategy in really big and ambiguous spaces. First, what does strategy even mean? How I think about strategy is being able to build a plan, priority, and a product in a really wide and ambiguous space. So if I threw something at you like healthcare or education, you as a product manager would be able to boil that down to help me come up with a product or a product direction that I should be moving in. So how did I do this when I wasn't a product manager? On the weekends, I spent time on topics that I cared about. So voting, education, poverty. And these are really gigantic spaces that if I just threw it at you and told you to build a product, it would be very hard. So what I did was I took these big spaces, let's say education, and I whittled it down into what are the main problems in education today. And I didn't try to boil the ocean and come up with the 100% of problems that are in the education space. Instead, 80-20 rule again, I came up with a select 5 number of problems in the education space. I started thinking through a couple things. Who is my target segment of people? Is it K to 12? Is it college? Is it post-grad? And then once I chose one, I then began to think of what are the unique problems that they have that I could be solving for. For college, it could be in the US cost, obviously. It could be lack of relevance to transition from a college degree to a job. So I started putting those down, and then after that I went to go search for data. There's a really good website called World in Data that gave me some statistics on global education. So I took that to then inform which segment I should prioritize and what problems that I should be focusing on. And then from that, I developed a couple of solutions. Bad product managers start with solutions and ideas. Good product managers start with questions, hypotheses, and trying to understand the space. Okay, the second tip is the ultimate secret. Tip number 2, go build a product. No, I'm not telling you to start coding this weekend, but building a product can be as simply building low fidelity wireframes. So what does that mean? Wireframes in product development means drawing out the user experience or the user journey in a couple of boxes in what is called a user flow. So for example, if I'm PayPal and building a payments app, some critical parts of the user journey is going to be creating a feature to link your bank account, creating a feature to create a profile, a feature to send your friends money. And you're going to realize that those might seem like easy features, but when you break it down, there's so much complexity. So for example, let's take sending a friend money. In order to do that, each individual would have to create a profile. And then a sub feature of that is enabling that individual's profile to be linked to a bank account. Then the sub feature of that is to allow your bank account to talk to PayPal's API. Then a related feature with that is building the actual API to allow these two entities to talk to each other. So do you see how it can get complex really quickly? And that's why product managers have a job, in order to form clarity in a really big ambiguous space. Tip number 3, take on projects from idea to launch, or from concept to getting it to consumers. And this is a critical part of being a product manager in the execution bucket. My first project before I became a product manager was as a technical program manager, where I built an e-commerce website to help people recycle smartphones. I was able to take a problem that we were trying to solve in the market to then an online transaction experience and an offline experience. And that enabled me to go from 0 to 1, again, concept to launch, which a product manager has to do over and over again. You probably get more exposure to these type of projects, 0 to 1 projects, at a startup. So if you're a student figuring out what type of company you want to join, a smaller startup would give you much more exposure to all the different functions that a product manager works with, such as design, privacy, content strategy, marketing, etc., etc. Tip number 4, present complex ideas. So as a product manager, a key part of your job is communication, whether that's external to partners and customers or internal to your team members, leadership, cross-functional teams. You're always communicating, and part of that is to get everyone on the same page and aligned. No, that doesn't mean getting everyone to agree with you, but helping everyone understand the same context to then enable the team to make decisions fairly quickly. Now, how did I practice this? So on my weekends, I would take time to create presentations on topics that I had studied. So for example, I did a presentation on growth hacking, and I ended up finding a startup community in Indonesia of 300 people that I presented to over Zoom. So I kept doing this for other startup ecosystems, which gave me the ability to practice public speaking and communication. I also used to do walking tours in San Francisco, and that allowed me to, again, find an audience of over 50 people every weekend to share, to tell stories, and to explain complex concepts. So your homework is to find a topic that you know a good amount about and to find an audience who might care or might not, and break down that complex concept to them and get some feedback on whether you explained it in a very clear and concise way. I hope you're writing all this homework down. Last tip, tip number 5, work cross-functionally. So as a product manager, one of your jobs is to work across teams, across different partners, and working with a lot of people who you're going to need to build positive and productive relationships with. The majority of my work is basically getting our teams aligned, herding cats, keeping our team members accountable so that we can make fast progress. So the best thing you can do there, homework, is find a project where you're working with at least 5 cross-functional team members. So some of the hardest, which you can challenge yourself, is working with privacy, legal, marketing, and sales sometimes. Okay, let's summarize. Tip number 1 is to build strategy in complex and ambiguous spaces. Tip number 2 is build a product. Tip number 3 is take a product from idea to launch. Tip number 4 is present complex ideas. And tip number 5 is to work cross-functionally with at least 5 different teams. And there you have it. Those are 5 best practices on how you can start doing product management work so your team begins to perceive you as a product manager, even though you don't have the title yet. But that will be the surest way to get your team members confident that you can be a product manager. Did you learn something new today? If so, give it a thumbs up so other people can find it. And most importantly, let me know what else do you want to know about becoming a product manager. Leave it in the comments below. See you guys next time.